A couple was golfing on an exclusive course lined with luxurious mansions. At the third tee, the husband warned, "Honey, watch your swing. If you break a window, it'll cost us a fortune." Naturally, the wife's shot sent the ball smashing through the largest house's window. The husband winced. "I told you. Let's go apologize and see how bad this is." They walked to the house and knocked. A voice called, "Come in!" Inside, glass littered the floor, and an elegant broken bottle lay nearby. A man on the couch greeted them. "Are you the ones who broke my window?" he asked. "Yes, sorry," the husband stammered. "No need to apologize," the man smiled. "I'm a genie. I've been trapped in that bottle for 1,000 years. You freed me. As thanks, I'll grant you each a wish and keep the last one for myself." The husband perked up. "I want $1 million a year for life." "Done," said the genie. The wife chimed in. "I want a house in every country." "Consider it yours," the genie replied. "Now for my wish. After 1,000 years, I'd like to spend some time with your wife." The husband hesitated, then said, "Well, we did get a lot. Go ahead, honey." The genie whisked the wife upstairs, and they spent hours together. When they were done, the genie looked at her and asked, "How old is your husband?" 38, she replied. The genie chuckled. "And he still believes in genies? Incredible." A man was walking along a Californian beach when he stumbled upon an old lamp. Curious, he picked it up and rubbed it, releasing a genie. The genie stretched and sighed. All right, you've freed me, but this is the 4th time this month. I'm getting tired of granting wishes. You only get one, so make it count." The man thought for a moment and said, "I've always wanted to visit Hawaii, but I'm scared to fly and get seasick. Can you build me a bridge to Hawaii so I can just drive there?" The genie chuckled and shook his head. "That's impossible. Do you know the logistics? The supports would have to reach the bottom of the Pacific. Think about all the concrete, all the steel. No way. Pick another wish." The man sighed, then thought harder. Finally, he said, "Well, I've been married and divorced 4 times. My wives always said I'm insensitive and don't understand them. So I wish I could truly understand women, know what they feel, what they're thinking when they give me the silent treatment, why they cry, and how to make them really happy when they say nothing." The genie paused, then grinned and said, "You want that bridge to be 2 lanes or 4? A blonde redneck guy stumbles upon a lamp, gives it a rub, and out pops a genie. The genie tells him he has 3 wishes. The guy thinks for a moment and says, "First, give me a bottomless mug of beer." Instantly, a mug of beer appears in his hand. He takes a sip, then another, and the mug magically refills each time. Delighted, he continues drinking. The genie asks, "What about your other 2 wishes?" The guy pauses, then grins and says, "Give me 2 more just like this one." A poor, elderly woman, desperate to avoid eviction, began selling her belongings. As she sifted through her dusty possessions, she discovered an old, dull copper kettle. Curious about its worth, she cleaned it off, and suddenly a genie burst forth. "I've seen your troubles," the genie declared. "I'll grant you 3 wishes." The woman, in shock, thought for a moment and said, "I've grown old. I wish to be young and beautiful again." In an instant, she transformed into a stunning, youthful woman. Overwhelmed with joy, she exclaimed, "Genie, I wish to live in luxury. I want to be rich." With a snap of his fingers, her surroundings shifted. Her tiny cottage became a grand mansion, and she was dressed in a dazzling gown with sparkling heels. As she marveled at her new life, the genie spoke solemnly. "You have 1 wish left." The woman, smiling at the sight of her old cat, who was now startled by the transformation, made her final wish. "This cat has been with me for so long. Please turn him into a man so we can enjoy our days together." With a flash, the cat vanished, replaced by a handsome young man. The woman, overjoyed, rushed into his arms. As they gazed into each other's eyes, he whispered, "I bet you wish you hadn't had me fixed." In the 1930s, a wealthy banker and his wife were dining at an upscale restaurant when a stunning young woman approached their table. She kissed the husband on the cheek, said she'd see him later, and walked away. His wife, glaring at him, asked, "Who was that?" The husband, looking guilty, replied, "Oh, she's just my mistress." "That's it! I've had enough. I want a divorce," the wife exclaimed. "I understand," the husband responded. "But remember, if we divorce, there will be no more shopping trips to Paris, no more winters in Barbados, no summers in Tuscany, no expensive cars in the garage, and no yacht club. The choice is yours." Just then, their mutual friend Jim entered the restaurant with a beautiful woman on his arm. The wife asked, "Who's that woman with Jim?" "That's his mistress," the husband replied. The wife huffed, "Ours is prettier." A woman walked into the doctor's office and said, "Doctor, this baby hasn't had milk for 2 days." The doctor, without asking too many questions, reached into her shirt and began examining for quite a while. After a moment, he said, "Well, ma'am, there's no milk here." The woman looked at him surprised and said, "Doctor, you could have asked first. I'm the aunt, not the mom." A man embarks on a journey through the desert. While wandering alone, he stumbles upon an old lamp. Thinking it might be valuable, he rubs it, and to his surprise, a genie emerges. The genie tells him that he can only make one wish, choosing from 3 options. He can either become the richest man in the world, the most popular man, or the wisest man. The man thinks carefully and says, "We all know that money doesn't guarantee happiness, and popularity just leads to being controlled by others. Wisdom is everlasting. I'll choose to be the wisest man in the world." With a puff, the genie grants his wish. The man's face adopts a serene expression, and he sits in deep thought. After a moment, he looks up at the genie and says, "I should have taken the money." It was Sunday, and the preacher had just wrapped up an inspiring service when Rick, the wealthiest man in town, stood up and asked to address the congregation. The preacher wasn't surprised. "Just make it quick, Rick," he sighed. "Sure, Father," Rick replied, clearing his throat before speaking to the crowd. "I can still remember the day I earned my first $1, he began. "That same evening, I attended a church meeting, and the speaker talked about his humanitarian efforts. I had just that single $1 to my name, and I faced a tough decision. Give it to the speaker's cause or keep it for myself. I chose to donate it all, and I truly believe God blessed that decision, which is why I'm a millionaire today," Rick finished, wiping a tear from his eye. From the back of the room, an elderly woman stood up and called out, "Oh yeah? I dare you to do it again." A 19-year-old Italian girl tells her mom that she's missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother rushes to the drugstore and buys a pregnancy kit. After the test result shows that the girl is pregnant, the mother explodes in anger, shouting, cursing, and crying. "Who was the pig that did this to you? I want to know," she demands. The girl, tearfully, explains that she only dated the father for a few weeks. She picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, a Ferrari pulls up in front of their house. A distinguished, mature man with gray hair, dressed impeccably in an Armani suit, steps out and enters the house. He sits down with the family and says, "Good morning. Your daughter has informed me of the situation. While I can't marry her because of my personal family circumstances, I'll take responsibility. I'll cover all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life. Additionally, if it's a girl, she'll receive a Ferrari, a beach house, 2 retail stores, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a $2 million bank account. If it's a boy, my legacy will be a couple of factories and a $4 million bank account. If twins, they will each receive a factory and $2 million. However, if there is a miscarriage, what would you suggest we do?" At this point, the father, who had been silent throughout the conversation, places a firm hand on the man's shoulder and replies, "You try again." A retired man bought a home near a high school, and for the first few weeks, his retirement was peaceful. Then the school year started, and things changed. One afternoon, a group of noisy young boys came down his street, joyfully banging on every trash can they passed. They did the same the next day and the day after that. Finally, the retiree decided he had had enough and decided to take action. The next afternoon, as the boys came down the street again, he stopped them. "You kids are a lot of fun," he said. "I used to do the same thing when I was your age. I'll give you each $1 if you'll promise to keep doing it every day." The boys, thrilled by the offer, eagerly agreed and continued banging on the bins every day on their way home. After a week, the old man approached them again, but this time, he didn't look as cheerful. "This recession's really hitting my income hard," he explained. "I'm going to have to cut your payment down to $50 a day if you want to keep banging on the bins." The boys were not pleased, but they reluctantly accepted the reduction and continued with their noisy activities. A few days later, the man approached them again. "Look, my retirement checks haven't come in yet, so I can't give you more than $25 a day to bang on the bins. Is that okay?" The leader of the group threw up his hands and exclaimed, "$25? If you think we're going to keep wasting our time banging on these bins for $1/4 a day, you're out of your mind. No way, mister, we quit." And with that, the man enjoyed peace and serenity for the rest of his days. A long time ago, a wealthy man was having an affair with an Italian woman. One night, during one of their secret meetings, she confided in him that she was pregnant. Concerned about his reputation and marriage, he offered her a large sum of money if she would go to Italy to have the baby. He promised to provide child support until the child turned 18, as long as she stayed in Italy. She agreed, but wondered how he would know when the baby was born. To keep things discreet, he instructed her to send him a postcard with the word spaghetti written on the back. He would then arrange for the child support. Months later, he came home to find his wife holding a strange postcard. "Honey," she said, "you got a very odd postcard today." "Just give it to me," he replied. "I'll explain it later." The wife handed him the card, and as he read it, his face turned pale and he fainted. Alarmed, she picked up the card and read it aloud. "Spaghetti, spaghetti, spaghetti, 2 with meatballs, 1 without." A man drove over to his neighbor's house and knocked on the door. An 8-year-old boy opened the door. "Is your mom or dad home?" the man asked. "No, they went into town," the boy replied. "Well, how about your brother Howard?" the man asked. "No, he went with Mom and Dad," the boy said. The man stood there for a moment, awkwardly shifting from one foot to another. Then the boy spoke up. "I know where the tools are if you need to borrow one, or I can give my dad a message for you." The man, still uncomfortable, said, "Well, I wanted to talk to your dad about your brother Howard getting my sister pregnant." The boy paused and thought for a moment, then said, "You'll have to talk to my dad about that. I know he charges $500 for the bulls and $150 for the pigs, but I have no idea how much he charges for Howard." A happy 90-year-old man walked into the doctor's office, grinning ear to ear, chatting with the nurses and staff. When he was brought in to see the doctor, he continued to smile, full of energy. After the doctor examined him, he told the old man that his health wasn't in the best shape and he needed to start eating better. The old man, surprised, replied, "I've never felt better. I have an 18-year-old bride who's pregnant with my child. What do you think of that?" The doctor thought for a moment and then said, "I have an elderly friend who's an avid hunter. One day, in a bit of a rush, he accidentally picked up his umbrella instead of his rifle. When he got to the creek, he saw a rabbit sitting there. He raised his umbrella, shouted bang, bang, and the rabbit fell dead. What do you think of that?" The 90-year-old man replied, "I'd say somebody else shot that rabbit." The doctor smiled and said, "Exactly." Fred was about to tee off on the first hole when George, a second golfer, approached and asked if he could join him. Fred said he usually played alone but agreed to the twosome. They were even after the first few holes, and George suggested, "We're about evenly matched. How about we play for $5 a hole?" Fred, not usually one to bet, agreed. George easily won the remaining 16 holes. After they walked off number 18, George counted his $80 and then confessed, "I'm the pro at a neighboring course, and I like to pick on suckers." Fred, shocked, replied, "Well, I'm the parish priest." The pro, flustered and apologetic, immediately offered to return the money. Fred smiled and said, "You won fair and square. I was foolish to bet with you. Keep your winnings." The embarrassed pro asked, "Please, is there anything I can do to make it up to you?" The priest thought for a moment and said, "Well, you could come to Mass on Sunday and make a donation. And if you want, you can bring your mother and father along. I'll marry them." A wife was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband's key in the door. "Stay where you are," she told the panicked lover. "He's so drunk he won't even notice you in bed with me." Sure enough, the husband stumbled into bed none the wiser, but a few minutes later, through his drunken haze, he noticed 6 feet sticking out at the end of the bed. He turned to his wife. "Hey, there are 6 feet in this bed. There should only be 4. What's going on?" "Nonsense," said the wife. "You're so drunk you miscounted. Get out of bed and try again. You'll see better from over there." The husband, still a little confused, climbed out of bed and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Oh, okay, you were right."